Welcome to the channel. I'm your host, the BitBoy. Today, we're going to be beginning a new series that I'm going to be calling our Sunday Sunrise Service. Kind of in the same vein of our old videos, our Sunday Drive videos in 2021, 2022. And what we want to do in these videos is I'm going to be talking about concepts in crypto and how they relate to principles or foundations of life or spirituality or things like that, because these things are important. Everybody knows that, like in poker, for instance, the mental game is more important than anything else. It's very important that you are not falling into the same traps and pitfalls that all of the other retail traders are, and you got to figure out how to get out of that. We're going to be talking about that today. So whether you are facing, we're going to talk about fear today, actually, is what we're going to be discussing. And we're going to be discussing how to use your fears to correct things in your crypto journey, I guess would be a great way to say it. So when we look in crypto, there's a lot of fears. I mean, there's a word that's got fear right into it. It's FOMO. And what does FOMO mean? FOMO means the fear of missing out. And as teenagers may use that to mean that it was a Friday night and they didn't get to go and it sucked. But for us, when we're talking about crypto, we mean entering at the wrong times. We mean that you are afraid that the price of an asset is going to rocket, and so you pile into it, even though it may not be a smart move at the time. There are plenty of other things as well in crypto. Like, think about this: if you have had some big trades and you've lost them, then you've got fear there. You don't want to get back into it because you're afraid you might lose your money again. And that might be true. For some of you, it may not be advantageous to trade. But there are plenty of other fears. I think when it comes to not taking profits, that comes out of fear. Why? Because you are afraid you're not going to get the maximum gains. You have worked out this calculation in your head of, if this coin gets to this price, this is how much money I make. However, you find in your journey as you go trying to get profits, you discover that as you're taking profits, now the price of your asset has to go up even higher than it did before for you to get the same returns you had kind of estimated. So I think that is something that really hurts people. And then, of course, people that sell at the bottom, they're afraid that their asset just isn't going to move. And sometimes that is true. Other times it is not. So these are kind of some things in crypto that are fear related. And I think that, another thing to think about with this as well is why people get extremely risky portfolios. Why would you put 70% of your portfolio in coin number 412 on CoinGecko? It doesn't make sense to do that. So when people are doing that, what they're saying is, I'm afraid that in a normal crypto portfolio that's suggested by almost every single educator in the space, a diversified portfolio that's anchored by strong projects like top 10, top 20 projects, layer ones, layer twos, DeFi, things like that. And then from there, you can have a little bit riskier allocations, but you need to have the bulk, like 70% of your portfolio at least needs to be in the top 20 to 30. I would say probably top 20. That's what it probably needs to be. And you can remove stable coins out of that equation as well. Or you might have some projects that are right out of the top 20 that were before. You guys understand what I'm saying. So I think that even when people are making really risky picks, it's because they just don't trust that their money is going to get them out of their situation. Then we have fears where people are worried about just your financial situation in general, and that is driving a lot of your decisions. And you have some people that have fear on one side, and so they're super passive, they don't do anything. You have people that are fearful on the other side, kind of the more the FOMO people, and they're going to do everything, and they're going to lose all their money because they're just going to make erratic moves. So the thing we're going to talk about today, one thing is, what are your crypto failures? What are driving your crypto failures? Okay, what are driving your crypto failures? I want you guys to think about that. I want you guys, if put it in the comments if you would. What is it that are driving your failures? What are your failures? Is it something I just suggested? Are you selling at the bottom? Are you ended up making trades where you don't actually even make any money? You're just moving stuff back and forth? Are you not taking profits? Are you feeling that FOMO? Are you scared that if you don't get it this time in this bull run, you're screwed? What fears are driving your crypto failures? And it's important to understand that it says in the Bible, it says that perfect love, it casts out fear. And it implies that fear is not good. Fear is not from God. So if it's fear, then it's something negative, and you can remove fear from your life completely. So the thing is that one thing I wanted to talk about with you guys are some of my fears. Now, some of my fears are going to be different than yours because you guys are not a public figure. I'm a public figure. I'm in this crypto space. Everybody knows, a lot of hoopla around me and all these things. So I want to talk about what my biggest fear is, because, a lot of people, they look at me and they say, man, he's fearless. I get that all the time. I'm not scared of anything. And I've been that way pretty much my whole life. I've never encountered situations that I really wanted to run from. I always want to run into things. And, I think that within me, I have this kind of justice, sense of justice, that I always want to see justice be done. And that drives a lot of what I do in terms of, running into different situations. When I was a kid, I think I was probably 13 maybe, or maybe 14. I was on a mountain I was actually at a little church retreat camp thing, and it was in Jasper, Georgia, and there were 4 of us that were hiking. It was me, a girl named Jennifer, my friend Chris, and a guy, James. And James he wasn't 100% mentally there. He had some mental issues. He acted a lot, excuse me, he acted a lot younger than he was. But the thing is that we got on this mountain and we got ahead of the rest of our group, and we got so far ahead that we got lost. And we had been lost on that mountain for hours, wandering around, no clue. And everybody started to buckle. When my friend Chris started to cry, Jennifer had already been crying. We were all about the same age. They were already crying. And I'm looking at James and I'm thinking, man, this is not a good situation at all. Like, he needs to feel comforted and secure, and they're not. And so I said, you know what? Here's what I'm going to do, guys. You guys stay right here. Right here. I found a spot where I could remember. And I said, stay right here. I'm going to go get help. And I ran like 3 miles. I got to the road and I ran 3 miles, and somebody came and picked me up, not on purpose, just I was going and somebody was driving. They said, would you like a ride? And of course, no fear, I said yes. So I got in his truck and we drove down to where our leaders were, and I told them, and they got back up there and everybody got rescued. And I went out in the woods by myself, knowing that I was confident I could figure it out. But even when I was young, like, I just didn't have those fears. I don't like to get hurt. I don't want to jump off a 20-foot wall or anything like that. But I do not have a lot of fear. You guys saw what I did in karate combat. You saw when I went down to the Bahamas with Sam Bankman-Fried and everything that happened there. And I'm just not afraid to back down. But a lot of people would look at that and they'd say that's fearless. But my thing is actually I'm terrified on the inside. There's something that I'm so scared of, and you guys see it. Everybody sees it, right? It's my reputation. I am fearful of what people think about me at all times. And what drives that? I would say what drives that, the fear, is that people won't like me. I had a lot of problems growing up. When I was in the 6th grade, I got beat up a lot by kids that were a lot older than me. And I was always fighting back. I fought, 8 kids at one time. It didn't work out well for me, is what I'll tell you. But I did, it wasn't immediate when I went down. And then there were some kids that had failed a couple grades, some 8th graders when I was in the 6th grade. One of them gave me a black eye in front of the whole gym. He pushed me, I pushed him back. I realized, wow, that was a man. That's not a boy my age. And so he shoved me back. And, the thing is that I just have always been willing to, get in there and get my hands dirty if I have to. And one thing is because of all this bad stuff I went through. I felt like I was so wrong during that 6th grade year that I had. It was so awful. I tried to kill myself. I actually, tied a little rope on a playground around my neck and jumped off. It went away immediately, because the moment I did it, I said, oh no, that's a bad idea. And of course, I never thought about anything like that again the rest of my life. But it was a really, really, really hard year for me. And it's because just nobody got me. Nobody understood me. I didn't wear nice clothes. I had really goofy hair, and I'd never combed it. And I just didn't care about stuff like that when I was younger. Ironic, right? You guys see it. But I was so scared of what people thought of me. And today that still comes out. And it doesn't matter how many times I try to deal with it or work on it. I am an attention seeker, as you guys know. Everybody on YouTube, in a sense, is. That's what we're competing over, is attention. And so I'm always competing for attention. And then on the back end of that, if that attention comes in negative, then it hurts me. And you have people that are scared of their reputation for different reasons. There are some people that are scared of their reputations because they are literal scammers, and they don't ever want anybody to have any kind of negative view of them because it would ruin their ruse. But for me, the reason I'm so obsessed with it is because I long to be understood. I long to be understood. It's why I talk so much. Think about it. It's why I talk so much. I want people to understand me. I'm a Scorpio, and I've got specific stuff in my birth chart and things that indicates along it, not just from an astrological standpoint, but if you go look, is it the Myers-Briggs? I think I'm like a ENFJ. I think is what I am. And if you look at Scorpio versus ENFJ, they're so similar. One of the things that's so similar is they both are extremely misunderstood, and I've got that doubled. And a lot of people, like a lot of people don't really know me. You just see me on the videos, and there were a lot of people I knew in real life that kind of just knew me from videos. They would see me at conferences, and sometimes I would have conversations with people, and they'd be like, "Man, you're actually like deep. You have a lot of levels." And I'd say, "Yeah, I don't understand how people wouldn't see that." Not that I'm like bragging about that. I'm just saying, like, I always assume that people are understanding me, and then when they're not, and they say they're not, or they say on Twitter that they're putting things about me that aren't true, like that stuff drives me absolutely insane because I really long to be heard and to be understood, especially in the space that I'm in. And so the thing is that I do have fears, and that fear has driven a lot of my decisions financially as well in crypto. But the thing is I want to talk about faith over urgency. And this is really important because, there are studies that have been done that show that people who live stressed lives, that live urgent lives, they die earlier. And we're going to talk next week about words, but anyways, and how important things like that are. But, when it comes to stress, we know it causes a lot of problems in people's lives. They took I think it was about 1,100 men of two different varieties. One lived kind of a life of urgency where they were always doing stuff, and then the other 1,100 were a more relaxed group. And they found that it was like 1% almost, almost 10% and the age group was 39 to 45 or 35 to 49. I can't remember which one of those. And they found that in the stress group, 10% of those guys died of a heart attack in the next 10 years. 10%, okay? Think about that. There's a literal effect on us when we are putting stress on ourselves. And one thing that shows this more than anything, and how you can see people that have the most fear, and you guys see this with me on Twitter sometimes, is that they're just urgency. They got to do it now. It's got to happen now. Urgent. Yes, got to do this. And when you do that, not only do you make a lot of bad decisions, but you really, really are not showing any faith in any good core beliefs. You're only really showing faith in your bad beliefs, right? Because when it comes to urgency, the reason why people are so urgent about everything, I'm not talking about things that literally have deadlines, okay? I'm talking about someone gets something, it's due in a month, and they got to do it right then because it's got to get done. They got to get everything done. Everything's got to be urgent. That's the way a lot of people live their lives. I'll be honest with you. That's the way that I've lived most of my life, and I'm looking to change that somewhat. But the reason that people live that way is because they have a lack of faith. And so what you have to get to a point of is having these core beliefs that are, the foundational faith that you have, and that should prevent you from ever feeling like things have to be urgent. Something has to happen right now. And so what do I mean by that? Well, I'll just take my personal lawsuit, for instance, okay, with Hit Network. For me, I'm always stressed about it. Always. Well, I was. I feel I'm not stressed anymore. It's coming down for me now, finally. It's been over a year. But the thing is I was just always so stressed because I wanted everything back now. I wanted it back now. And I am going to get it back. This is not a question. It's just when. It's not if, it's when. And the thing is that who knows how much longer this is going to take. I keep feeling like it's next week, this week, next week. We have so much evidence. We have so much. But the court process is just slow. It's just slow. And I got to give up on thinking it's going to happen today or going to happen tomorrow. And so that living in that urgent way, what that was making me do is go to Twitter and like try to tweet stuff that would attack people or would try to show someone in a certain light or reveal something because in some way maybe that will help speed things up, or that would, you know, hit network, it would help me or something. And the truth is every time I did that, it only hurt me pretty much overall. There might have been a few instances where things that I said were, you know, worked out for me, but not usually. That's why I'm trying to change my Twitter these days, because I no longer care how long it takes, because I now have faith that it's going to happen. And I'm going to speak that into existence. It is going to happen. I'm going to get my channel back. I hope it's by the end of the year. I hope it's next week. But it doesn't matter when. I'm going to get it back. And I have the faith of that, because it's not just that I'm saying it. It's that we also have the evidence backing us, which is another story. But you have to really get to a point where you're able to take a core belief and you're able to translate that into something tangible. So this core belief of faith that I have, that this situation is going to work out for me, okay? Now I got to live that out. Now I have to speak it. I have to say it. I have to make my actions line up with that. And I can't tell you it will be perfect. I don't know. I don't think anybody's perfect at anything, pretty much. However, I do think that this is something that is going to play out, because I really believe it and I have strong faith. And I'm going to stop saying things like, oh my God, if it doesn't happen by this time, blah, blah, blah. No, it doesn't matter. Just don't be urgent. Just relax, have faith. You can apply this to anything. You think about this with profiting, with taking profits, because this is something you guys need to start getting in your head. Bull run is starting soon, I believe. You need to start thinking about taking profits, pulling profits. So because of that, you have to figure out, okay, if you've had a hard time with that, what has been your core belief? What has been your core fear that's been driving you to mess that up? What has been driving you to mess that up? Is it your own personal financial lack, that you're in so much debt, or you have, you know, so your house payment is so high, whatever it is, you feel like you've got to get the maximum value and you're going to hold out until it happens? How many times has that happened? It doesn't really happen for people. People don't ever sell the top. Only one guy sells the top, pretty much. Only a small handful of guys sell the exact top of a market cycle, okay? So what that means is you got to learn to take those profits along the way. And maybe that means lowering your expectations, because you don't have to fix your entire life this year, the next 365 days. You don't. Remember, you have time. You've got time. Don't be urgent. When you're urgent, you're going to make mistakes. So make sure that you're figuring out whatever your core belief is that it has been driving that fear, and figure out how to turn that into an affirmation. And you can say it out loud and you can talk about it and things like that. And that's where the next part comes in, which is affirming your faith. And it's going to go into the next part, which is words as weapons, because we've already mentioned this a little bit, guys. Okay, so in the Bible it says something really interesting. Okay, and I'm not when I talk about the Bible, I want you guys to understand, I'm talking about the concepts in it. I'm not trying to convert anybody, because I actually have a much different belief system now than I did a year ago. And so just whatever your faith journey is, or spiritual journey is, I mean, live it. But most people agree the Bible's got some really interesting and pretty good stuff in it. Whether you believe it's 100% accurate, and it's not 100% accurate, it can't be. There's number differences in translations, but I digress. I think a lot of the concepts are really good. And I believe that one thing it talks about in the Bible is it says that in the beginning, there was a word was with God, and it was God, right? Everything is made of words. And I believe that. Have you ever heard people say things like I said earlier? I said, I'm going to speak it into existence. Have you ever heard anybody talk about how, I heard a Joe Rogan podcast, I believe they were talking about how you can actually, your words you speak out loud, they actually shape your reality. And then you start thinking about that Bible verse, right? And you start thinking about the word. And I know it's got different connotations and different meanings. I have a Bible degree, so I could tell you all about that, but that's not important for right now. What is important for right now is for you to understand that you can use your words as weapons. Your words are weapons. Now, do we want to use those weapons to curse other people? No, because when you curse, or you become like Satan or Saturn or Kronos, or however you want to look at the evil in the world. This is a paradox that exists, okay? Satan, or just think of evil, okay, is the great accuser. Makes accusations. What does that mean? It means that in your head, there are lies that are formed and things happen around you to help perpetuate those lies about those things that you believe about yourself that cause you to have a negative countenance or a negative attitude, okay? If someone wrongs you and then you become their accuser and you become a person trying to put lies in their head, or maybe you believe they're truths, but they may be lies to them, then that actually makes you no better than the person that did it to you originally. And so it evens out the playing field and makes everybody bad, basically, okay? Essentially. So we don't want to use our words as weapons to hurt other people. We don't want to use them to curse other people. What we want to do is we want to use our words as a way to shape our reality. We want to use it as a weapon to attack our existence, to attack life, to attack with ambition, with a driving force, something that is positive and that you want. What kind of life do you want? How do you shape that? You shape it with words. When you affirm the things you believe by saying them out loud, and even more importantly, when you don't say things that are the opposite of what your core beliefs are, right? So, for instance, if one of my core beliefs is something like, we'll go back to the example, okay? We'll go back to the example. If one of my core beliefs is something having to do with trading and taking profits, right? And that core concept of faith is, I'm gonna have faith that the thing that's worked for many, many years, 12 years for people now plus, in crypto is going to work for me. If you start pulling FOMO trades, or excuse me, if you are not pulling profits when it's a really green day and you have hit a mile marker, then you're not acting out your core belief. And you don't want to say things to counteract that. You don't want to say things like this. Well, I tell you, I'm going to pull the profits when it hits 3x. But if the volume is good, and I mean, we're in an uptrend, then I would probably let it sit. No, that's the opposite of your core belief. Your core belief here is that taking profits is going to be a good thing. Taking profits is a good thing, and it's not urgent. You don't have to be pulling profits every time it moves, but you do need to have markers and goals to where you're going to be able to pull profits and do things that are good. And so you just don't want to you don't want to speak out loud things that are the opposite of what your goals are. You should never say anything out loud that flies in the face of your goals. Would never want to say, one day I want to own the Falcons, right? I would never say something like, you know what? That sounds like, you know what? Now I'm sitting here thinking, I saw that coach, man, that'd be a lot of work. Man, I sure wouldn't want to do that. I think I still want to own the team. No, you don't want to say stuff like that. You don't want to speak things out loud. Your thoughts are different than your words. You can think things and you keep them up there. And you try to purge them, you try to meditate, you try to get rid of that, anything in your head that may be negative, but you can control this. You can't control your brain 100%. Only through meditation, a lot of stuff can get to a point where you can control your brain and stay focused. We know the attention span is destroyed here in America. I think you TikTok and all this stuff. But the fact is that things now are a lot different. The attention spans have been completely destroyed and people can't stay focused. But people that can stay focused, they still are not going to stay focused 100% of the time with their brain, okay? But a lot of monks, they don't speak. They don't speak. The monks know that they can't control their brain 100%, their minds, their thoughts. They can shape it, they can do it almost, a lot of them, but not perfect. But they know they can control this. Your mouth is like a rudder that steers your ship. And I know I'm preaching to the choir right here. But it is something important. Your words are so important, the things that you say. They have the power to give life and the power to destroy, the power to create. You can create positive images for people. Instead, sometimes you focus on destroying them. And one of the reasons why, I believe, is because of fear and judgment, and the way that we make vows based off of our judgment sometimes, right? I would never do that, and then we get in that situation, and man, and there's nothing like feeling those accusations for stuff that you've done after saying so many bad things about people that do those same things. So overall, here is the message today, guys, okay? We're gonna talk more next week about words and how important they are, but this week, it's about use your words this week. Type some stuff in the chat, in the comments. Type your goals out. What are your goals? Let's start speaking this stuff. Let's start talking about it. Let's talk about it on the channel, on the live stream. Make sure you guys join us. You go to Discord if you want. We got a link down below in the description for that. And I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of longer, different style video. Let me know what you guys thought. That's all I got. Be blessed. BitBoy out.